Long time ago, there lived a beautiful princess named Andromeda. She was the daughter of King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopei, who lived in Joppa. Andromeda was as kind as she was beautiful, but her mother had a bad habit of boasting. Cassiopei boasted about her daughter's beauty all the time. She bragged about her daughter to all her friends, neighbors, and even to the folks working at the palace. One day, the vain queen had bragged that her daughter Andromeda was more beautiful than the Nereids, the sea nymphs. The Nereids were the daughters of the sea god Poseidon. When they heard this, they were very angry and decided to teach Cassiopei a lesson. So they went to their father and started complaining. Poseidon at first ignored them, as he had better things to do. After all, he was the god of the sea. But his daughters kept whining about the queen and her daughter that it became quite hard to ignore them. Poseidon had enough by now, and one day, in a fit of rage, he flooded the city by the sea and sent a huge sea serpent. The people of Joppa were terrified at the sight of the huge sea monster. They started running around to save their lives. The desperate King Cepheus appealed to Zeus, who suggested the sacrifice of Andromeda as the only way to appease the angry sea god. Cepheus was shocked to hear this, but he had no other option to save the city. When it finally dawned on him that there was no other way, he ordered his daughter to be chained to a tree on a cliff near the sea. And there she stood, the beautiful and kind Andromeda, chained by the sea, waiting for the sea monster to eat her. That day, Perseus happened to fly by the city of Joppa and saw Andromeda chained by the sea. Perseus is one of the greatest heroes of Greek mythology. He was the son of mighty Zeus and mortal Danae. Perseus is also said to be an ancestor of Hercules. He stopped by Andromeda, who told him what happened and begged him to save her. Perseus had fallen in love with her at the first sight, and he promised to save her. Suddenly, the sea monster emerged from the sea, licking his lips at the prospect of having a delicious meal. Perseus wasted no time. He swooped down with his magic sickle and battled the sea monster to the death. Andromeda was impressed, and naturally, she fell in love with Perseus. When he asked her to go along with him to his country, she insisted that they get her father's permission for marriage first. Perseus met the king and sought his approval for marriage. The king was surprised and happy to hear that Perseus had already killed the sea monster. The king was also mighty glad to hear that his father was Zeus, the king of all gods. He gladly agreed to the wedding. After the wedding festivities, Perseus sailed away with Andromeda. They headed for his home in the city-state of Argos, where they lived happily ever after. As for Cassiopei, she was no longer allowed to boast about anything. This was by the king's order. A long, long time ago, there lived an evil king named Perseus. The king ill-treated his people, and he was disliked by everyone, including his daughter Danae. One day, an oracle told Perseus that he will be killed by his own grandson. The king was afraid. Fearing for his life, he locked up Danae in a bronze chamber and gave strict orders to let no man inside. How will she get pregnant now? The evil king was so proud of his plan. But what he didn't know was that Zeus, the king of gods, was already in love with her. One day, Zeus infiltrated her prison and impregnated her. Danae gave birth to Perseus in a few months. When Perseus came to know about the child, he was very angry. He placed the mother and child in a chest and set them adrift at the sea, hoping to never see them again. They were carried safely to the island of Cepheus, where they were offered refuge by the kindly fisherman Dictys. Perseus grew up to become a strong and wise man, and he loved his mother very much. One day, the king of the island, Polydectes, saw Danae and wanted to marry her, but Danae rejected his offer. This made the king very angry, so he ordered his soldiers to arrest her, and then made Danae his slave. The next day, Perseus arrived at the palace looking for his mother. To get rid of him, the king told Perseus to bring him the head of Medusa, the Gorgon, if he wanted his mother back. Little did Perseus know that the king was sending him to his doom, for whoever laid eyes on Medusa turns into stone. Her body was covered in scales and had masses of hissing snakes for hair. Perseus left the island searching for Medusa. Along the way, he met Athena and Hermes, who gave him a sickle, a reflective shield, and a pair of flying sandals. Do not look at Medusa's face. Use this shield instead, warned Athena. They told him to meet the water nymphs for more help. Perseus searched for many days and finally met the water nymphs sitting by a river. When they heard the plight of Perseus, they took pity and gave him the magical helmet of invisibility. And so, with the help of gods and nymphs, Perseus was ready to take on Medusa. When he reached near the cave of Medusa, he was surprised. The cave was surrounded by people who were already turned into stone. Holding his sword before him, Perseus slowly entered the cave. Perseus remembered Athena's advice, and he started walking backward, looking at the shield's reflection. Soon, he spotted Medusa, sleeping in a corner of the cave. Perseus walked backward, looking not upon Medusa, but only upon her reflection in the shield. When he was near enough, he struck off her head with a curved sickle which Hermes had given him. And still, without looking at it, he thrust the head into a bag and hurried away. As soon as he reached back home, he went to the palace to meet the king. Polydectes thought Perseus was lying and asked him to show Medusa's head. Perseus took the head from his bag without even looking at it. He knew that even though the head was dead, it was still capable of turning anyone into stone. The king gasped and gave out a little moan. Then he went quiet, as he had turned to a stone. That was how Perseus saved his mother from Polydectes. They lived together happily for a very long time.